An 18/6 for 6 mana is typically not good, but in this video I will show you how it is not only good, but can also kill turn 2 in Modern. Now how are we actually going to do that? First, it starts with the deck list. There are many different combinations of wins with both Yargle and Emrakul the Aeon's Torn. Let's start with Kragenwick Cremator. This is a 4 mana 5/4, and when it enters the battlefield, we discard a card at random from our hand. If that card was a creature, we will deal damage equal to its power to target player. As players consistently burn themselves down with their mana base, it is easy for either Yargle or Emrakul to be a lethal creature to discard at random. The theme of discarding cards is also supported by Goryo's Vengeance, a 2 mana instant that returns a legendary creature from our graveyard to the battlefield with haste. As we want to empty our hand for Kragenwick, the Asmo plan is a great way to glue together both of these ideas as it sets up for very fast kills. Take this example, with the Cookbook turn 1 on the play, my opponent has a Thoughtseize. This not only puts them to 16 life, but also makes them guaranteed dead as I was fortunate enough to have 2 Goryo's Vengeance in hand. This let me cast the Goryo's Vengeance to get back the Yargle from our graveyard to attack with an 18/6 with haste, but the opponent conceded before I could do that. The final pieces to make these two plans work is Profane Tutor and Urza's Saga. Being cards that can search our library for the missing piece that we need will win us a lot of games, as we typically need around 3 cards to assemble a combo. While this list may seem gimmicky, after watching this video I will definitely change your mind. To start off game 1 of round 1, we've got a great opening hand. With both a turn 1 Cookbook into turn 2 Profane Tutor, we have many options going into the 3rd and 4th turn because of Urza's Saga. The opponent starts off the game with a turn 1 Ragavan, but we don't need to worry about that because we are a beast and find a Voldaren Epicure off the top of the deck. This will not only deal 1 damage to the opponent, make us a blood token, but also be a great blocker for that Ragavan. It doesn't stay around for long though, as the opponent has an Unholy Heat and gets him with the Ragavan. What is good for us is that they miss their second land and just pass back with the treasure up. With the Cremator off the top, the best thing we can do is play our Urza's Saga and put the Profane Tutor onto suspend so that we can work towards a combo kill. Trying to find lands, the opponent starts the turn with an Expressive Iteration, which does find a Scalding Tarn. Then they attack in with the Ragavan and pass back the go. On our upkeep, we remove a suspend counter from the Profane Tutor, so we are looking to cast that next turn. As I'm not in a big rush to combo because the opponent doesn't have a lot of pressure, I'm just going to look to try and block the Ragavan with the Urza's Saga token. This sadly doesn't work as they do have a Lightning Bolt in combat to kill the construct and the Ragavan hits again. This is when the opponent decides to cast Expressive Iteration and actually whiffs on a land. So now here the opponent's options for counterspells are just Spell Pierce or an Unholy Heat to kill Yargle. So not wanting to go for Goryo's Vengeance, I actually think that it's better to find Yargle out of the deck with this Profane Tutor. Now we draw a Voldaren Epicure, so we can tap the Urza's Saga for mana, go get the Cookbook out of our deck, then play our second Urza's Saga, activate the Underworld Cookbook, and cast the Cremator with 3 Yargles and 1 Voldaren Epicure in hand, making it a 75% chance to kill the opponent. I preferred going for this line because if the opponent had either Spell Pierce or Unholy Heat, the Goryo's Vengeance plan wouldn't have worked. Going into boarding, Yargle and the Cremator aren't great post-board because they're very hard to get onto the table with counterspells, and Yargle isn't great against spot removal. We start off game 2 with an interesting keep. Generally I don't like to keep hands like these which lack ways to combo, but because we have access to 2 Urza's Sagas, and now 3 with our draw step, we can try and kill the opponent by just making constructs. Starting off the game with a Thoughtseize, I have a very tough decision. Generally speaking, if there's just 1 Ledger Shredder, I will take it because it's very good, but with 2 Ledger Shredders here, I'm actually leaning towards the Consider. Think about my thought process. This counterspell isn't that good against me because my hand is heavily relying on Urza's Saga. And if I take something like the Murktide Regent, then they're just going to kill me with Ledger Shredders. If I take a Ledger Shredder, they just have another one, and again the counterspell, not good against my hand. So after thinking for over 2 minutes, I decided to take the Consider to try and slow down this Murktide Regent getting on the table, as I'm assuming the Murktide is going to be faster at killing me than the Ledger Shredders against the constructs. What's good is the opponent doesn't tap out for Ledger Shredder on their turn 2, so now I can play my Urza's Saga and potentially bait out a counterspell with just this Cookbook that I don't actually need because I have multiple Sagas in my hand. The opponent does decide to counterspell, and now we're going to get a lot of value this game. It also seems like taking the Consider has potentially mana screwed them, as they do miss their 3rd land on their 3rd turn. Now we're just going to be looking to make constructs with this Urza's Saga and get a Cookbook out of the deck so we can start discarding this Oval Chase Daredevil. After making a construct on their end step, a construct in our turn, and getting a cookbook and playing another saga, the opponent bounces one of the constructs with Petty Theft from Brazen Borrower. Here we can just keep passing back the turn and making construct tokens to try and win the game. On my turn 5, I managed to make a 5/5 construct token with both the food tokens from the cookbook and making a second construct from my Urza's Saga, but things don't look too great when the opponent plays an engineered explosives. This actually surprised me though, because they didn't cast their second Ledger Shredder first so that they get 2 connives, they cast them the wrong way round. After they pass back the turn with 2 mana up, I think they are scared of Pithing Needle on engineered explosives because they sacrifice it before I can search my library with the Urza's Saga. This won't work out too well for them though, because we do have access to both Ovalchase Daredevil and the Asmarano Condicular, so now we can just play both of those and kill one of the Ledger Shredders and make their life extremely awkward. We also can then make a construct at the end of all of that, so we get a lot of value. After passing back to the opponent, they do have both a Ledger Shredder and 2 removal spells to wipe my board and slow us down because this Urza's Saga is about to be sacrificed. We definitely need a land off the top to keep us going. I guess instead the deck absolutely blesses us with the Goryo's Vengeance to help us just steal the win, which is great because that's why we put the card in our deck. So here we float a mana with Urza's Saga, discard the Emrakul the Aeon's Torn to the cookbook, get it back with the Goryo's Vengeance, and attack and get that Annihilator 6 trigger to both wipe their board and deal 15 damage to their face. Now that I've shown you a serious matchup, I want to show you all of the games that I thought were hilarious that I played with this deck. To start the first game of choice, I kept this risky hand on the play in the blind because 1 discard outlet was an instant win, and also lands were very good with the Cremator in hand. So all we had to do here was either find a 4th land or a way to discard a card, and we'd be able to either Goryo's Vengeance or Cremator. Things start off normally with the opponent leading with an island, but things definitely change when they play a Hedron Crab. Don't forget, Emrakul the Aeon's Torn shuffles my whole graveyard into my library when it's put into there. AKA, it beats mill. So all we're doing is waiting for the opponent to mill an Emrakul the Aeon's Torn, and then hopefully they'll concede the game. So sadly, spoiler alert, on their next turn, they actually mill an Emrakul the Aeon's Torn with a Jace. Now, in response to the Emrakul, the opponent decides to Surgical Extraction the Asmo. Now at first, I thought this was a mistake because you want to remove the Emrakuls from my deck, but I guess their logic is they have 2 Surgical Extractions, they want to remove the Asmos first before they're shuffled back in, and then the Emrakul, but the sequencing would be way better if you exiled the Emrakuls first, because then you'd know if I have Goryo's Vengeance or not in response to cancel the Surgical. So when the opponent eventually Surgical Extractions my Emrakul, I do Goryo's Vengeance in response. While we won't get value from this Emrakul, we're preventing them from being removed from our deck. But then the opponent has the 3rd Surgical Extraction in the main, in their hand, which is definitely something I haven't seen before by mill, but I guess it happens sometimes when you do need these effects in your deck. Now, with the opponent passing back and a Thoughtseize off the top, I could Thoughtseize the opponent, but I'd rather take the 50-50 chance that I discard this Yargle and also put a 5/4 creature into play if we do discard the Thoughtseize. Of course, this wouldn't be the HarryMTG channel without me getting lucky, so we do win the coin flip. Then, going into game 2, my opponent just conceded the match. They were done. They just didn't want to play against the 4 Emrakuls. And this actually happened quite a lot. My opponents kept conceding after game 1. This round is a great example. Here against Hammer Time on the draw game 1, we have a great opening hand because we have a turn 1 cookbook into turn 2 Asmo. This will also make us 2 foods and let us start killing some creatures. So I start the game off with the cookbook and pass back the turn. The opponent then plays a Springleaf Drum, attacks in for 1, and misses their second land drop. After looping the Ovalchase Daredevil with the Underworld cookbook, we find an Urza's Saga off the top. This lets us loop the Ovalchase Daredevil again. We can then play the Urza's Saga, play the Asmo, get another cookbook out of our deck, play that cookbook, and also kill the Giver of Runes, getting us a lot of value. After passing back the turn, the opponent confuses me by playing 2 more 1-drops. So I don't know why they didn't cast one last turn when they had the Giver and the Springleaf Drum. Anyways, to start my turn, I loop the Ovalchase Daredevil twice with the cookbook, making 2 more foods, and we can kill the Gingerbrute now to play around something like Blacksmith's Skill. Then I just decide to pass back the turn to leave open the Urza's Saga construct. With the opponent finding their second land, they actually decide to do nothing, so we make a construct, find a Profane Tutor, make another construct, and then the opponent concedes the match in game 1. So yeah, very confusing end, but something even more sad, for you gambling degenerates, chests are now broken on Magic Online, so you can't open them. So the 7 chests that I won from the 3 tournaments I played with this deck are just gonna have to wait for our next video.